You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Wake up to the world you've been missing. Time to jump out of bed in the morning. No day, no life, now we're living. Can you feel it in the air that you're breathing? Time to show 'em what you're made of. Let's get back on track. Are you ready for a come on? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No calming down. Can you feel it all around? Welcome back.
Hello and welcome back to Super Mega Crash Beyond. I am your host, Stephen White, and Lacey Finley is not with me today, mainly because today, if you're listening on Monday, it's her birthday. So, happy birthday, sis. I hope you're enjoying your day and your weekend. She went away on the weekend to do whatever she wanted to do. You know, she's probably having a better birthday than I had, because I had COVID. Anyway, that's what I got for my birthday. Anyway, I'm joined today by my wife, Katrina.
Hello.
She and I do a podcast together called Inspired by a Weeaboo. We are on our third season now, and we are going through the entirety of Full Metal Alchemist, the original series, not the Brotherhood series. And how are you feeling about where we've been down on that journey? Because it was we started the show in 2018 as kind of a mid-season replacement for any time we would take a break on Super Mega Crash, and then we just kind of forgot about it. And then finally decided to get back on track and get it back up and running since I think it was 2022 when we ended that year with Fooly Cooly, and then did Akira as kind of a in-betweener, and then now we're doing Full Metal Alchemist, which throughout the entire rest of this year, like if you haven't listened to it, every episode will be covered by the end of the year, plus the movie that caps everything off. So if you're unaware of that or you didn't know about it, you know, there's that over there. And then we're not 100% sure yet what we're doing for next season. I mean, Katrina's tossed around a few ideas.
I have.
And everything. So we don't want to say anything just yet. Listen to the final episode, and you'll have an idea when it comes out later this year, or last day of the month, pretty much, of December. But today, because it came out, and I wanted to touch on it, and I really wanted to wait on Lace, but again, she wanted to get away for her birthday, just like I wanted to, but again, alas, could not. I wanted to talk about Spider-Man 2, and I might touch on it later on, maybe at the beginning of an episode, but this will kind of be first impressions, because I have not played throughout the entire game. I wanted to get more time, but again, things changed because of COVID, so I didn't get a chance to play it as much as I wanted. So essentially this will be giving impressions on what I had, and the reason I asked Katrina to come along is because as much as I could sit here and talk to myself, I feel like it's easier for me to bounce off of someone and chat with, because then I don't feel like I'm talking to a wall. So it seems, I don't know, it's hard. Like the last time I did it was on Horror Ramblings, talking about a movie, and I felt like I was talking to the void, and it just didn't feel natural. So talking to you, having you nearby, and then you can obviously, because I mean, I know you haven't played it, but you've watched me play it, so you can kind of give your impressions or anything that you see as an observer. So whatever you feel. So where to begin with this game? That's kind of the tricky part, because now one thing I will say that I don't want to touch too deep into, again, since I haven't played throughout the entire story, is I really don't want to talk too much about the story, maybe a few beats here and there that I've noticed, but I also don't want to dive too deep, because I know spoilers and whatnot, and people may want to keep certain elements quiet, which I appreciate, like I can respect, so I don't want to spoil anything for that. So first and foremost, I want to talk about gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you stepped out of the room when I first started playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you needed a moment to relax, which I understand. And I booted it up.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of they have an option where you can previously on Spider-Man, so you can kind of recap your story if you've forgotten what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they recap the events of the original game and the Miles Morales game. So kind of giving you a TLDR of anything that was been going on between those two games, so you're aware. But they do it in a very clever way where it's Miles is trying to fill out a college application form, I think it is.
Yeah.
And they're asking him, like, well, what about this and what about that? And he's talking to Pete about it. And then Pete's just like, well, I have this accomplishment, and this, but I'm also secretly Spider-Man. He's like, well, you can't say that. And he's like, yeah, but, and then just goes on and on. A very clever way of kind of recapping everything as you're going on. And then once you kind of get to a bridge in the game, you start, or once you get past that, then it kind of does a prologue where you get to see Harry Osborn and Norman and Harry Osborn, talking about, or kind of giving you an understanding of where Harry was pre this game.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because in the last game, again, spoilers if you've never played that, this is something that is very integral to this story, is in the last game we're kind of left kind of a what do you call it? Credit scene. Yeah.
Kind of like a cliffhanger?
Mid-credit scene, I guess, because they don't really but a cliffhanger in that same sense of the term. But I think it was a mid-credit scene. After you beat the game, you see, like, you heard hints of Harry, you heard his voice, so you kind of got a hint that something was amiss with him, that he was off somewhere. You never really got 100% sure what the deal was, and then you finally see that Harry was in this tube where he's been treated for a disease or something, and then you get a hint that what he's being treated with is the Venom symbiote or something very close to that. So they don't go into any more details than that. Then when we pick up this game, we see a flashback 2 years prior to the events of this game, and he's getting ready to actually go into the tube. So the only part of that, though, because I was even telling you, is I wasn't sure if this was a genuine scene or a dream sequence type scene where the events are skewed. Because in my perception of Norman Osborn, from what I've seen from comics, from what I've seen in movies, cartoons, whatever, he seems like he cares for his son to a point. Like there's a moment where he seems like he's a genuine father, but when the chips are down or something like that, he almost seems like he will favor something else over his son. Maybe not in a mean, vicious way, like he hates him, but almost like he doesn't do it, like he's not thinking about what's more important. Like he hasn't got his priorities straight. Like he's thinking, well, but if I do this thing on work and then I get that, then everything will be fine. And then, my son, my family, that'll be fine. But let me choose work first and then I'll come to you. But again, I've seen sympathetic versions. I mean, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, I think, is a great example of that, where you see him kind of struggling because he's being manipulated by the Kingpin and he feels like he's being pressured into doing all this illegal activities, which he seems kind of okay with, but at the same time, the blackmail of it all kind of makes him seem reluctant.
Yeah.
But then when Harry comes into the picture, Harry feels like he's a dejected kid. Like his father doesn't care about him. All he cares about is work. So he comes off like, my dad doesn't care about me. And that might not be the case, but that's just how Norman is. So that might be the Norman we're getting here. Because in that opening scene, he felt like he was being genuinely sympathetic. Right? So I don't know what part of Norman we're getting here. You know what I mean? Is he
Yeah.
going to be a simple? Because I feel like that would be good for the character, especially in this story, for him to be a caring father who was trying to do right by his son, but maybe has done something that may backfire. You know what I mean? Despite his best efforts, he was trying to do something good and it didn't. Now, granted, I'm not saying anything about the story regarding Venom, because I know that is something that, for me right now, I will say this. I do not know who Venom is in this story. Okay? Have no idea. My thought, my suspicion is it will be Harry, because Harry has been Venom in other media. I don't know if it is, so my saying this, just understand that is not a spoiler from anything that I know about the game. This is my speculation. I am not that far in the story to know who Venom is. So, based on what I know, that's who I think it could be. Now, could they maybe possibly introduce Eddie Brock somewhere in the narrative, and then it'd be like, oh shit, and maybe, I don't know. But, I mean, there is a possibility, there's potential for it, because MJ is now working for the Daily Bugle. I almost said Planet. And then one of the greatest references I loved about this game so far is that Peter, there's side missions that you do where you take pictures. And it's very much similar. I think they did something like that in the original game. But you take pictures of things happening in New York, and this almost seemed like it was a love letter to New York. Like I genuinely want to feel like these were things inserted into the game as you're taking pictures that are very New York, like someone who grew up in New York, knew all the boroughs, knows all of this. And these are deep, deep cuts for New York. You know what I mean? Because it's some of the simplest things, like seeing. I think there was a luchador standing on a street corner and trying to rally people to come to a wrestling match, and then there was another one where you just see a bunch of guys playing b-ball out in a court, and people dancing on the beach. Very, very simple things, but then who you're sending these pictures to is Robbie Robertson, who in the comics. And maybe this has changed because I haven't really kept up with the comics as of late. But he was always Jonah Jameson's editor-in-chief at the Daily Bugle. So it was like they were hand in hand. You know, here's the publisher, here's the editor-in-chief. And the fact that we got Robbie in this, I was so excited to see Robbie, because he's another character I feel like doesn't get a lot of play in other media. I feel like he's forgotten. In the 90s, that's where I really got familiar with Robbie Robertson and that character, and I really love that character. I think he's a great contrast to Jonah, because Jonah's always like, Spider-Man, he's terrible, but then you have Robbie who's like, come on, Jonah. He's trying to do good. He's a hero. Chill out.
Yeah.
So getting him to at least kind of be the voice of New York in a way, as you're taking these pictures, he'll give you some insight or some understanding of what that means to New York, I felt like was a beautiful touch. And it probably means so much more to people who grew up in New York, who are true New Yorkans. I guess that's the proper term. New Yorkans.
I thought it was like New Yorkers.
New Yorkers. There you go. That's probably better. New Yorkers. New Yorkians. Anyway, where was I?
You have all of New Yorkers coming for you.
Well,
the whole damn city.
If we have a New Yorker listening, I would be like honored. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to our petty little podcast. But yeah, so story-wise, that's where we kind of pick up. But again, it's a dream sequence and whatnot. And then it kicks off. And again, I don't want to go too deep in the story, but I just kind of want to give a understanding of how it starts. Because I felt like it was such a great way to kind of jump back into the world of Spider-Man. And in doing so, it was like you see where Peter and Miles are in their story now. So Miles is still at Visions Academy, which we never really got to see even in his game, because that was a borough in Brooklyn, is where Visions was. Now, in the original game, we kind of got, and I really don't know how to differentiate. So if there is a New Yorker who can help me understand one side or the, like, how you differentiate, you have the west side of New York and the east side of New York, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, the bridges connect two sides, Brooklyn's, Queens, I'm trying to think of the other boroughs on that, Williamsburg, all that. And then on the other side is the big city where you have Midtown, Hell's Kitchen, Central, Harlem, all that stuff. That's on the other side, Central Park. So east and west side of New York. So the east side is the part that we didn't get to play in the last game. But yet that's where Peter lives, or at least normally. That's where his Aunt May and everybody, he grew up in Queens. And then even Miles was born in Brooklyn, or at least that he lives in Brooklyn with his family, and then goes to school in Brooklyn at Visions Academy. So the story picks up with Peter actually having a teaching job at Visions Academy. I don't know why I want to keep saying Brooklyn Academy. Visions. And obviously Miles is there. And then Sandman starts in with his tirade of things. And then, you have to bail out of class, the both Spider-Man, and go save the day. That's about as much as I want to say on the story regarding that, because it's kind of interesting. But getting back into the flow of things, that's the one thing that I think I was most excited about. And it felt natural to me. It may not to other players, but I really hope it does. Is when we got back into swinging, I was like, all right, I feel this. I got it. Like, the rhythm of it felt like I've been here before. I know the routine. I know how to web swing. And I just kind of went with the flow. And then when combat came into play, when you actually got to fight, that's when everything really felt like, again, I don't know if it was just intuition or if it just came, I don't know what it was, but I felt like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And I jumped right back into it. Every enemy that I encountered in that first big fight, I was on top of it. Like, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Now, does that mean that when I started fighting every enemy from that point forward, I was just like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. I got it. No, I've had my ass handed to me several times, mainly because they have thrown in new things, new techniques that I'm unfamiliar with. And one of the things that always bothered me, and I don't want to say bothered me in a bad way, but always threw me off, kept me on my toes in the original game, were the brutes. These are the bigger guys who could always, like, if you did like a web attack, I'm trying to remember what they call it. You pretty much flick your web and then yank yourself forward to attack an enemy. Well, if you did that with a bigger guy, they'll practically grab it, yank you toward them, and then punch you in the face. So you can't do that technique. So you have to change it up. You can't slide up under them and attack them from behind, because they'll just turn back around and be like, what? They're like big rocks you're trying to fight. So it throws your rhythm off, especially when they get into the mix. Everybody else, if you're used to what, basic criminals, you know exactly who to go to, you know how to kind of keep everything moving. But then you get these new enemies who throw off your rhythm, throw off your game. There are new enemies that have swords, and I think the best way to kind of approach them, not only swords, flamethrowers, those are another one that's brand new, and those are the worst, I feel, because they have such a range. You have to parry, which is a brand new thing they've added, and I think that's a technique that I'm still trying to adjust my head to, because there's a very particular open window in which you parry, and then that will knock them backwards, and then kind of give you a open window to go attack them. Now, unlike the brutes, if you can parry them, you can still get around those characters, but they also can block. And when it comes to combat, that can also be tricky when you have enemies that block and throw you off your game. So the parry kind of throws them off their guard, then you can kind of get around them, and then that's how that works. But again, parry is a new thing that I'm trying to add into my fighting repertoire, and it's still kind of throwing me off. Gadgets are back, which always handy. The one thing I don't want to complain. This is not a complaint. I guess it's my way of playing games. I think I've mentioned before is I like to explore, and story usually takes a back seat sometimes until all my exploration is done, and then I go to the story. So I will level up so many things, but since there are, with leveling up in this, when it comes to your gadgets, when it comes to your abilities, you have tokens. Just like in the other game, you have city tokens, you have hero tokens, you have tech tokens, all these little things that you collect. And I feel like since there's so much, they have expanded how many you have. So they're giving you a hell of a lot more at a time than versus in the last game. And then there are certain tokens they kind of temper off, like some rare tech tokens. I think you only find those if you do a special mission or something like that, or you maybe find them at a certain site. So they're very limited versus regular tech tokens where you can find like their chests all over, which are not marked on the map that I've seen. I don't know if that's something that changes later on. But if you just kind of look on the map and you see like a blue light on a building rooftop, just hone in on it and there it is. And I've seen tons of them. And every time I'm swinging fast somewhere and I spot it, I usually loop back around and try to find the building. But they also kind of give you a sound you can follow to track it down. And just in case you happen to miss it, if you just listen for the beeping, you can usually track it down. But I appreciate that, and there's a lot of tech things that I haven't been able to upgrade because, again, I feel like I've explored so much that I have to progress the story to then unlock new side things for me to do so then I can earn those other tokens and so on and so forth. So as far as side missions are concerned, I knew this was going to be something that they would do at some point because there was a story beat where you're walking around this I think it's Oscorp, matter of fact, or something like that. And you're talking to all these different scientists who have these different experiments going on. One has something about a battery powered bike or solar powered or something like that. I can't remember what specifically it was, what they were trying to do with the bike.
Yeah.
But it had something to do with like energy generating something or other. And then you had some other person talking about bees, bee habitats and hives and stuff like that. And there was another one about plants, trying to feed the hungry, and they could eliminate world hunger if they could just figure out how to get all this done. So then these become side missions for you to help with the experiments and get these little stations up and running, which were kind of neat just to kind of play around with. And again, will in turn earn you tokens, which you can then in turn upgrade your tech and such. And I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. I'm trying to keep my thoughts tracked, but I feel like I've circled around so much because I feel like I got off track because I was talking about both sides of New York. And I don't know where I got there, but getting to play in Queens and Brooklyn, it might not seem like it's a big deal, but they are very open areas. You know, they're probably, I mean, by comparison, it's probably half the size of the main city, but it's still a whole new borough, like 3, 4, 5. I mean, that whole stretch that you get to explore. And this is something you didn't get to explore in the last game, especially like in Queens and Brooklyn. I mean, these are two very specific boroughs of New York that are distinct in their own ways. And getting to see them, getting to swing in them, just get to go there is so neat.
Plus, just New York in general It is like the hub for a lot of Marvel superheroes.
Yeah. I mean, I showed it to you, and I
Mhm.
wish I'd have stopped and explored it, but I feel like I was in the middle of something as I was doing it. But we did see Avengers Tower again, but I didn't go. I saw it from the bottom. Like I
Yeah.
was swinging through the city, and I
Saw the
saw
big
their
A.
their A, and I was like, "Hey, look, there it is!" And I was like, "Well, I'll come back." And I haven't come back to it yet, so I don't know where it's at.
And we've seen Doctor Strange's
Yes, that
home.
actually was again, not a big spoiler or anything like that, but that was actually an important story beat within a mission, was the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Sanctoria. Is that
Sanctorium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying. But yeah, that actually became an important locale for the story mission. So I was like, that was cool. Just getting to see it. I was hoping we would get to see Doctor Strange. And again, I've not gotten that far into the story. It would be cool if we do, but I'm not going to hold my breath, because I feel like if we were going to see him, we would have seen him in that story because of the things that were going on.
I mean, like we talked about it the other day, because you were swinging through and you jump down to stop, some bad guys, and you actually get to see Miles if you're Peter, and Peter if you're Miles, but they're actually doing Spider-Man stuff without you in the city.
Yeah.
While you're also doing Spider-Man stuff. And then we talked about how awesome it'd be if you could see Luke Cage walking around, or, Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen, and, all these other places that you get to swing around as Spider-Man and seeing these other superheroes superheroing.
Yeah.
And while it's still a Spider-Man game, it's the same thing like we've talked about with the movies. All these heroes live in the same fucking city, and they never come across each other.
Yeah. And I thought, it was always a thought that I had, especially in the last game. I said, wouldn't it be cool if you're just swinging around and you encounter one of these heroes? Now they have technically incorporated that idea in some way. Now, granted, I know Miles is a playable character, but it's the fact that you can come up on, it's not all the time, but you can come up on a crime in progress, and Miles or Peter, depending on who you're playing, could be there already handling it, and then you're just kind of helping out.
Yeah.
So why not have, in certain boroughs, like I said, Luke Cage, stick him in Harlem. If you happen to encounter crime in Harlem, that's where he's. If you're in Hell's Kitchen, that's where you'll encounter Daredevil. So you don't have to have them all over.
No, and you don't even have to have them all the time.
Yeah.
Like you could go through Hell's Kitchen every day, every night, and then just maybe once in a blue moon come across Daredevil kicking some ass and get to jump in and help him.
Yeah.
And the only one I feel like would have an excuse not to be there all the time would be Doctor Strange. And it's because we know he travels all over the place. But Daredevil and Luke Cage, along with Spider-Man, they all stay in New York City or the surrounding area.
Yeah.
You hardly ever see them out of it unless it's some big storyline for them to be out of it. But they're always there. So it never makes sense as you have all these, big things going on and just one or two superheroes just, lollygagging around.
Right.
It's not like DC. Come on. Like Batman, you're not going to come across other superheroes unless it's the Bat family in Gotham. Once in a blue moon, maybe Superman, but he stays, in Metropolis or other places.
Yeah.
But Marvel's always been one of those, whether it's their comics or their movies or the cartoons or the TV shows or whatever, they like to have all of these characters come across each other. And, the Avengers, obviously, the fact that they have Avengers Tower and you don't even just see the Avengers, because something we talked about, you can see through the windows. You actually see people inside their apartments and inside their homes in the game. So why not do that with Avengers Tower, where you're swinging through and you just see Cap walk by a freaking window, or, freaking Iron Man walk by a window or whatever. You just see them. They ain't even got to be playable characters. You just happen to see them.
Well, that's what I even wanted to say. I don't feel like any of them should have to be playable characters. I'm not asking for them to be playable characters, but like when I did a mission earlier, again, slight spoiler if you don't want to know what the mission was, but this is the Doctor Strange mission that I mentioned. We got to see the return of Black Cat. And in that mission, you eventually get into a fight sequence and you're fighting together. And sometimes when you do a special move, especially like if you're playing or you encounter a Spider-Man fight. So you got Miles and Peter together in a crime situation. You can do a special move and the two of you do like a duo move on an enemy. That also happened with Black Cat. Miles and Felicia did a move together, and I was like, that is cool. So you could do that same thing. You don't have to make them playable. You're interacting in the fight together, helping each other out. You say your goodbyes, and you're off. I'm not asking for anybody else to be playable in this game, but just to see, like you said, to see them because they're supposed to be there.
Exactly. They're supposed to be there.
And they reference so many because now I haven't heard. Of course, I haven't really explored Harlem all that deep, but so I don't know if there's any references to Luke Cage there. I know that in the original game, there was that building that said Nelson and Murdoch.
Yeah.
But apparently it's gone now. We kind of deduced that, yeah.
Yes, they did show, we watched a video where it kind of showed the first game compared to this one. And some of the things that they changed, and of course, like how much they updated and everything else. And one of the things was Murdoch's law firm. And when they showed it for the new game, it was removed off the little placard. However, whoever made the YouTube video should have zoomed in because there was a pink notice on the door that almost looks like it was either, kind of an eviction notice or they moved and it's, like up for sale type notice. So you could always say, well, maybe they found a new law firm. Maybe they moved to a different part of the city. Maybe it's a whole nother storyline as to why Daredevil is not there anymore. But even with that being said, you could still, even going through Hell's Kitchen, you wouldn't even have to see Daredevil as long as they referenced him. Like you could just be strolling along at night and somebody be like, oh my God, I saw him, the devil, the Daredevil, whatever in the hell they want to. Yeah, the devil of Hell's Kitchen. And it would just be like, that's fucking awesome. Like they're acknowledging him.
Well, they've to some degree have acknowledged Danny Rand, who's the Iron Fist. Yeah. Because one of the students at Visions Academy mentioned something about getting the Rand scholarship. And I thought, that's cool. So they make the references, but they're so subtle. And maybe there's licensing issues. I understand that could be a possibility. But with it being Marvel, I feel like they should be able to throw out those, give them the opportunity to license. I don't take this the wrong way if you're a fan of these characters, but I don't see anybody licensing out to make a Daredevil game or a Luke Cage game or an Iron Fist game. These are C-level characters.
That's true. I mean, even like Jessica Jones.
Yeah, see, there's
like
another
they
one.
might be C-list characters, but if you put them in a game like Spider-Man, then it's still a Spider-Man game, but you're acknowledging that he's not the only freaking savior of New York City or of Hell's Kitchen or Harlem or, Brooklyn, whatever. When I say New York City, it's the entire freaking area. Just know that.
Yeah.
But so many of these types of games, I will say, other than Batman, and I feel like Batman's the exception because it is the Bat family. So the people who fight along with him, they're already part of his family, they're already going to be with him. But with Marvel, I mean, if you're going to put in Avengers Tower, again, just, you could even be swinging by and just see Iron Man freaking take off, see Captain America or whatever getting in a ship to fly off to go somewhere else. But just seeing these characters would make a world of difference.
Yeah.
Or even coming across them fighting crime and you come in to help would make the world of difference, because you're not only acknowledging these characters that there are people who absolutely love them, but you're putting them on a platform where you're not ever probably going to get that unless you're going to play their version of Mortal Kombat.
Right. So again, I'm not asking for these characters to be playable.
No.
But if it would just be cool to have them sprinkled in.
It would be cool.
And I do agree with you. I feel like with the bigger, like Iron Man, Captain America, I don't expect to see them out on the streets of New York fighting crime. I don't.
Well, no, but again, you have Avengers Tower and you know that's where they're coming from. So why the fuck wouldn't you see? I mean, there's not just those two Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So you're already stating, well, this is the tower where, you know, at least 10 or more superheroes who are part of this team congregate, but yet you never fucking see them.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be all the time. It could,
No.
You could see something as simple as maybe a lightning strike hits Avengers Tower and you know exactly what that means.
100%.
You know?
I think it would be just as adorable to go zooming or flying by and just seeing, you know, like little funny things like the Lego games do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where you have like those little funny instances of being like catching people and, you know, I won't say vulnerable moments, but, you know, kind of comical moments. Say you land on Avengers Tower and you crawl up and there's a certain window and inside you can see freaking Vision dancing in his boxer shorts or some shit. Just something funny that you're just like, wow, that's really fucking cool.
And it would be something you would never see unless you took the time
Exactly.
to go up there and explore.
Exactly.
You know?
And they could have done something like that.
Mhm.
With this game, they could have done so much of that because, again, like last night, you landed outside of this man's apartment. It was an older man in there and he was like cooking dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely like you could have went by, you could have played this game for hours and never fucking noticed it.
Yeah.
Never even seen it. But there are people out there like yourself who are going to go around the city and you're going to catch these things and you're going to go, that's really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you tell people about it, the more people who are going to play the game and then go look for those things and see if they can find other little things.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to put Easter eggs in, make it worth it.
Sure. And I'm sure that there are tons of Easter eggs. I probably haven't done a lot of due diligence in looking for them, but I did remember one from the last game, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go see if I can find it. And sure enough, it was there. I went to Uncle Ben's grave, which is now also has Aunt May sitting beside him.
Mm-hmm.
So you went there and kind of paid your respects and you could move on. So I was happy to see that was still there. And I was curious about going back with Miles and seeing if I could find Jefferson's grave, since I think his dad was also buried out that way. Spoilers for the first game, if you're unaware.
Now, I will say something that I was going to bring up when you're talking about the fighting and everything in the game. It really does make me think of Batman. When you play, what was the last one you played? Arkham?
Mm-hmm.
Just where you can kind of, you know, the jumping down and everything type of attacks, but also the automatically locking on to your enemy.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of button mash and, you know, attack. And it's just going to keep attacking the enemies that are kind of in close frame. I don't know. It really makes me think a lot of the mechanics behind Batman, even though I've literally never played either of them.
Well, I do believe that Arkham Asylum kind of kicked off that type of game fighting style, and a lot of people have emulated. I will give them credit. They feel like they've perfected it, because I can do more as Spider-Man.
Yes.
And feel more fluid and keep a rhythm going more than I can with Batman.
But I will say Spider-Man is a very flexible and smaller person than Batman.
Sure. But
So I feel like it kind of works because Batman's kind of bigger and bulkier and he has the cowl, so he can't move and he's not going to be as limber because he is also an older man.
Yeah.
But with Spider-Man, it makes sense because even Peter being, you know, bigger than Miles, he's also a very slender person and his suit lets him have that flexibility and move around. So I feel like even though Batman might be clunkier, I still feel like it works for the character. So I wouldn't say necessarily it's either a good or bad one, because even if they made it like how smooth Spider-Man's is, I don't think it would translate well for a character like Batman.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's not an apples to apples comparison. And I feel like it's just for me, and I don't know why it works for me in this regard. I feel like maybe is that innate connection to Spider-Man that I have since I love this character so much. I feel like it's more natural for me to fluidly fight as Spider-Man than I ever can with Batman. And I know it's similar, but for some reason I'm always not. And again, like I admitted, I can get my ass handed to me sometimes when I get thrown off. But in a good situation, I can hop in and I can bounce to each enemy without fail and know exactly what I need to do. And I'm already on top of what I need to do, whether it's webbing this guy to a wall, swinging back to this one, jumping this one back up in the air, just all the different moves that you can do. I'm already one step ahead of it in my head, trying to maintain what I'm going to do next. And I feel like it's natural. And I do even want to talk about that because, again, you get to play as both Peter and Miles, as we mentioned, and how the fighting styles vary between the two. Now, granted, basically, they're the same, in regards to your basic, simple punching, swinging, kicking. You've got your basic elements. Then you have the other things that kind of keep them differentiated. So, as you've probably seen in pictures, media, trailers, and whatnot, Peter now has how would you call that? Spider arms, I guess.
Oh, the Doc Ock type spider arms.
I guess more like kind of like the Iron Spider suit in the Avengers.
Yeah.
Those little arms, he has that as now part of his suit. Miles is kind of
Miles already has special superpowers on top of being Spider-Man.
He's got his Venom abilities. So, and when it comes to the special moves, that's where it kind of differentiates. So how you approach those. For me personally, like where I mentioned fighting the big brutes, Miles every day. If I know I'm going to have to fight brutes and I had a choice between the two, I would take Miles every single time because of Venom Punch. Boom. No questions asked. He's going to knock them on their ass. Therefore, I know I can take them out. Now, with Pete, it gets a little tricky, but the arms themselves, they can go in for vicious attacks. They can do what they need to do. And, they work for me, but I also feel like Miles, because of the Venom abilities, he has an advantage of being a little bit more powerful in that regard. So I really can't say which one is better because I really don't think it's a fair assessment because, again, they're very similar, but I also feel like their abilities, while different, also kind of have their perks.
Yeah.
I don't feel like one is better than the other per se. I feel like they're equally footed. It's just you might have one whose style works better for you overall.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, I probably inch Miles ahead of Peter just because I feel like sometimes I can do a little bit more with the Venom stuff than I can with Peter's arms and things like that. And also, speaking of how they differentiate, from what I've seen, there are certain story beats or side missions, I guess I should say, that Peter can do, like the stuff, the aforementioned stuff, the science experiments that he does for Oscorp.
Yeah.
You can only access that because you have a badge. So Peter has the badge. He's the one that gets to do those missions.
Which, makes sense because he's a whole ass adult where Miles is still a kid.
But then conversely, there was a story beat where you run into your Uncle Aaron and he mentions having these prowler hideouts across the city and he asked Miles to go check them out. So the only one who can access it would be Miles because of the DNA. I can't remember what exactly it was, but since he's his nephew.
Gotcha.
He's the only one who can actually access it. Plus, the missions, they find ways to kind of incorporate Miles's powers, like his Venom Punch or his electrical abilities, to those story missions. So therefore, it kind of works within that. So I kind of appreciated that too. So it kind of makes you bounce between the two, so you're not favoring one over the other, which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing with one and you're already there, then you're not really going to think about bouncing back to the other, because again, there are so many similarities between them. So, like swinging through the city, I can't say that Peter is any better than Miles or vice versa. You know, they both can swing the same. They both have the web wings, which are freaking amazing, by the way, especially when you can hit a wind tunnel. If you hit it just right, just glide. Don't move. Don't do anything. Let that thing just shoot you forward, and you will fast travel. I have yet to do it, and I don't think I ever will.
I will say that I think Peter's, now, again, this is just me, but the only problem I've ever had with watching you play the Spider-Man games is the swinging, because it makes me super fucking motion sick. But swinging as Peter, like, when I watch you swinging as Peter, it doesn't make me as nauseated as when you swing as Miles. And I honestly think it's because Peter elongates his body more.
Yeah.
Where Miles stays very kind of tucked and a lot of flippies. And I think it's like the smaller object kind of going at that fast speed makes me more nauseous versus being able to focus on something that's a little more long.
I can see that. Yeah.
But that is something that I kind of noticed. And I think it's awesome, because I also feel like they do that in the Spider-Verse movie. Like Peter is he kind of like, he does tuck and everything, but he also likes to stretch out a lot more as he is swinging through, where Miles will kind of tuck his legs and do like those flips, and like he's more fluid than Peter. And I think that I could be wrong, but from what I have seen you play it so far, I feel like Miles does a lot more of the fluid type movements while he's swinging. Peter is fluid while he's swinging, but again, I feel like Peter also stays kind of long, or does more of the Spider-Man-y type poses that we're used to, like, you know, the whole legs up like this. I know y'all can't see what I'm doing, but my husband understands.
Her legs are not up in the air, by the way.
No, they're not. But, you know, the legs up, the arm kind of down, that, you know, Spider-Man pose, I guess, for swinging. But I don't see Miles doing it as much.
Yeah.
Like, he does kind of do it every now and then, but it's kind of one leg tucked and one leg out, and, you know, that type of thing.
Now, Peter does have this one move that they kind of added in, or at least it's a pose that I don't remember seeing in the last game, that is very Spider-Man-esque, where he's almost upside down, but one of his legs is up in the air, and he's swinging upside down pretty much, but it's a very Spider-Man pose.
Yes.
Like very Spider-Man-esque.
Like, I've seen you draw several of the Peter Parker poses in the way that he swings, and they translated that over. And I feel like Miles still has that, but I feel like they tweaked it to a point, which I feel like is good, because he's not Peter.
Right.
So him being his own self, him being smaller than Peter because he still is a kid, and he's built different than Peter. Miles is a little, not thicker than Peter, but I don't know how to explain it. I feel like
he has a little bit more mass on him.
Yes.
Peter's kind of taller and lankier, where Miles is shorter and thicker.
Yes, but not thicker as in, you know, like thick, but thicker as in muscular.
Yeah.
So
and not by much, but I mean, you can see the variations, how they differentiate as two different Spider-Men in that regard. And so it should translate in the way they move, and I think that also kind of works in that regard.
Yes.
And while we're speaking of those differences, let's talk about the costumes.
Because, yes.
Holy shit.
So many costumes.
They said there are costumes. There are tons. I have yet to unlock them all.
No, but you've gotten quite a lot.
Quite a few. And let me admit, as a Spider-Man fan, first and foremost, just how much I love the characters and how much I love all the different Spider-Man suits that they have created over the years. with all the ones that I haven't gotten, and I'm looking forward to possibly being surprised by new things, because there have been some that are spoiled online because, people are assholes, but that's fine. I'm hoping to be surprised by some. Like there was one that I unlocked either last night or this morning. I think it was last night, and it was a suit for Miles that was designed like the Puerto Rican flag. So it speaks to his mother's heritage and his own heritage.
Which I'm a dumbass, because I was like, Captain America.
Which, yeah, I guess I could see where you'd see that too, because in some regards,
it made me think of Falcon's Captain America.
Well, I was going to say Winter Soldier. This is one of those ones. The Winter Soldier Captain America, when Bucky briefly became Captain America, he had a very red, white, blue, and black design that isn't too far removed from that. So I could see where that distinction could have been made. But again, I think it's more in reference to his heritage. In fact, the name of the suit, I'm not sure what the
I completely forgot you had that pulled up.
Boruca suit. Boricua.
Boricua for anybody out there that can pronounce that.
Yeah, Boricua suit. I guess that's what I'm saying. But it's a gorgeous looking suit, and I think it works best for his, like I said, his heritage and stuff like that. So I loved that. Now, I will say this. So with Peter, he is an established character who's been around since 1963. He has so many more iconic looks.
Yes.
That you can pull from over the years.
But I also feel like there's some of them that I wouldn't want, like that one. Okay.
There's this one called the Kumo suit, which
I really like it though. And it's probably because of, I would have to look up what a Kumo suit usually is, but I know I have seen it obviously in anime. I have seen suits with the little head wrap and all that kind of stuff. But the way that it's laid out, it is the head is very spider.
Yeah.
Very, very spider. The arms and the chest piece, like basically everything but the little scarf on his head, I absolutely fucking love. I think it is a gorgeous suit.
It's very uniquely designed, and I think this is one. Now, some of these costumes, again, they pull from the comics and movies and things like that, and then there are others that are specifically designed. I'm almost positive I remember seeing the Kumo suit was a specially designed suit from an artist from Marvel who is Japanese, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah.
So this is patterned,
that makes sense.
Yeah, this is patterned off of some design she had, something, I don't remember all the details, but along with the suits, they also have color variations, which I appreciate, but at the same time, I'm not 100% on board with, because some color variations are amazing.
Yeah.
Others, not so much. Like there is, let me find one that's, one that I could do without. Okay, great example. So you have your advanced suit, which is your primary Spider-Man suit. You can get it in red, you can get it in blue, or you can get it in a gold color. Now, the red and black, okay, there's your classic red and blue with the white spider. That's what we saw in the other one, just kind of slightly tweaked.
Yes.
You have the same thing with a different shade of red and black in place of the blue.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Now, the blue instead of the red, and then kind of an inverted. For anybody who doesn't have the game, it is basically like the normal Spider-Man suit, but if you switch the blue with the red and the red with the blue. Yeah.
So his mask and his torso is all blue, and then kind of under the arms, down the back, and of course the bottom is all red. I do not like it.
It's jarring because we expect the mask and everything to be the red.
But see, I don't even feel like it's just that. I feel like it's the color of blue, because his other suit is a very dark blue. This one, they went for like a lighter blue.
Even the red is a different shade.
Yeah, even the red's like two different shades.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't like it.
Right.
And the yellow, he looks like a fucking Power Ranger.
the last one, just yellow. I mean, they might try to identify it as gold or something,
No,
but
that is yellow.
it is mustard yellow, and it's just mustard yellow and white all the way through.
He
So
looks like a
where the
Power
red
Ranger.
and the blue would be, it's all yellow, and then where the white is, it's still white. So
Yes.
it's, well, not necessarily all the same, but it's just yellow and white, pretty much,
Yeah.
with the black trim for the webs and the eyes.
Yeah.
So it's jarring, and some people might like it. I'm not knocking you if you do, but it's not my cup of tea.
Now, I will say about one of his other suits, go back real quick.
Mhm.
The one that we were like, oh my God, that looks like Assassin's Creed.
Oh yes, the Arachnite suit.
Yes. So that got me thinking it's Moon Knight.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it looks like Moon Knight.
Yeah, it would have to be based off of Moon Knight, which I guess is why they called it Arachnite.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think of that before when we looked at it. And it was funny because both of us were like, Assassin's Creed.
Because it does. It does have a very Assassin's Creed-esque look to it.
It does, but this is one of, and I will say the red and the yellow, that one does look good. It's just the red hood
Mm-hmm.
that's just kind of throws off. But I will say all four of the colors for that one, it looks really good. But the
Yeah.
white and the red, chef's
Yeah.
kiss. Beautiful.
Like I said, with
noir.
Peter's stuff, you have a lot of iconic stuff. They threw in the noir Spider-Man. Now, again, if you don't know about all these suits, again, I haven't unlocked them, but just be aware of spoilers.
Well, a lot of them have been in
yeah, a lot.
past games.
Some of them have, yeah, like the
Yeah,
Scarlet Spider.
Yeah,
Was in
Scarlet
there.
Spider. Noir has been in another one.
Well, not that one.
Not that one,
Yeah,
but there
but
was a Noir.
There was
suit.
in the Edge of the Spider-Verse game, you got to play as Noir Spider-Man. Now, they have a hybrid suit, which looks like the Spider-Man, the Iron Spider suit from the Avengers movie. It has that spider design, but
Yes.
it looks like they've crossed it with a traditional Spider-Man suit. So it's like they did kind of a combo. So it's not armor, but has that design with a regular spider suit.
Yeah.
There's the third Scarlet Spider design, which kind of has a hood, which I kind of like. I think it's pretty neat.
I like it, but I would have preferred it for Miles over Peter.
Yeah.
And that is one thing. They do not have the same costumes.
Right. And that's why I wanted to touch on a few of them real quick. There was both Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit, I absolutely fucking love because it looks like Spider-Man.
Yes.
Like-
100%. It looks like
What you would
it'd be
expect.
Toby.
No, this is the Andrew Garfield
Or
suit.
Andrew Garfield, yes.
And that's it, with the big eyes and
Even the mesh.
yeah, the mesh web. I mean, I love it so much. I mean, the traditional Spider-Man suit like this one up here, it's great. Like
Yeah.
that's more of a John Romita look from the comics or anything like that. But there's just something about that has that ultimate Spider-Man look.
Mhm.
I just love it so much.
Now, I will say I am kind of disappointed that they didn't give Miles some of the other suits like Spider-Punk.
Yeah.
I would have, like, for Peter, it just doesn't look right. But I feel like for Miles, it would look better. And even, what's his name's? Oh my goodness. Over, down. Yeah, Spider-Man 2.
No, the 29.
Yeah, 2099.
Miguel.
Miguel. Thank you. I think that would have been cool for Miles to be able to wear Miguel's suit just because of the whole background with it,
Sure.
with Miguel.
Okay. So there's those, and then
Yes.
they have another throwback like the
Ugh.
old homemade suit, like she said,
Yeah.
the Spider Punk. They even throw in the Anti-Ox suit, which was the final suit you get in the last game, with some color variations, which is kind of neat. And then if you kind of come down a little bit, there's a Civil War Secret War suit, which I don't remember this in the comics. I did read that series, but it's It's an ugly ass suit. It's just not Spider-Man. And there's even one that's very,
Oh
very
my
pink.
God.
And then one that's just very camouflagey. One that you just look like a snow soldier or something. I don't know. It's not very Spider-Man-esque at all.
Yeah, no.
Then they threw in the classic Iron Spider. Not the Iron Spider from the movies, but the Iron Spider from the comics design.
Yeah.
They really amped up the design. Reflects like a son of a bitch, too.
I mean, basically, what if Iron Man gave Peter Parker a Iron Man spider suit.
Which he did. And that's the result of it. And then so far, we also got to see, or we found the the Venom suit from the Spider-Man 3 movie, which I thought was kind of a nice little nod. But then there were 5 suits that kind of came as like pre-order bonus. The Arantia suit, which I'm assuming these are all but one are new original designs, and they're not bad. Like there's this one, the Apocalyptic, which kind of has a variation of the Spider-Punk, but it's...
See, that's another one that would have fit Miles better than Peter.
Well, we'll get to Miles' stuff in a second, because I feel like there's a few in there that would kind of... I see what you're saying, but I think they have variations of that in a way.
Okay.
So there's a tactical suit, which I feel like they did in the other game, but I'm not 100% sure, or maybe I'm mistaking it for something else. The Stone Monkey suit, I feel like was it was in the comics. I genuinely feel like I saw that. And then there was a 25th century suit, which looks very, very bulky. It doesn't feel very Spider-Man-y.
No, it looks like Ant-Man.
Yeah, I guess that would be
like an Ant-Man suit. And I honestly think that would be absolutely cool for them to do in the comics, or if they ever do it in the movies, have them create Spider-Man a Ant-Man spider suit, because how terrifying would that be? Spider-Man's already super freaking strong, and then you're going to make him tiny too.
Yeah.
Or really fucking big.
So, wait a minute. So with Miles now, he has a wide assortment of suits, not as many. And the reason, what I wanted to talk about with the comparison, now again, like I said, Peter's been around since 1963. He's had decades for artists to come in and create new and original suits for the character. Miles is fairly new. So a lot of these designs for me aren't hitting as much, because I feel like a lot of the best designs they've done for Peter, and I feel like that's unfair for Miles. I'm not saying they're all bad. I just feel like some are not, I don't know, the inspiration feels a little off.
Well, I will also say it's kind of, yes, they've had more time to create more outfits for Peter that are nostalgia based, but some of those outfits aren't Peter's to begin with.
Sure.
They were completely other Spider-Mans, which, again, I guess is why I feel like they should have let you kind of use those for both of them, not just Peter.
Right.
Because they weren't his originally anyway.
Well, here's a great example. All right, so one of the first suits you get is kind of like Miles's. They call it his upgraded suit, and it's kind of classic design: the red trim, red webs, black on black, just classic Miles design for what it is. Now you have different color variations, and this is again me being a stickler for who's who. For whatever reason, putting Miles in a suit that looks very much like that, but color coordinated like Peter's suit. Red, blue, and white feels wrong to me, because I feel like they have the different color schemes that represent which Spider-Man you're talking about. You know, even like there's some that have purple with green trim for Miles. I feel like, again, fits more with him because of his uncle. That's supposed to be family oriented to the Prowler, so it works for him. Like the family business suit is what they call it. And there's a very pink and green suit, which I don't know if I like that one as much as I do the Purple Rain suit, which kind of has more of a Prowler-esque look to it. And they mix the trim a lot better. Now, there are some variations of it where it works, where it's like there's another one that's silver and red. That's kind of neat. Some of his more inspired choices, kind of like you said, are the ones where he has the hoodie and sneakers.
The sports one
kind of gives him more of a teenager feel, you know, like this teenage Spider-Man,
which is what I like, because I feel like at the end of the day, like, one, yes, they do go with the darker suits for Miles. You do get a lot of black and red or just the darker colors in general, and he looks out of place in those lighter colors like the bright red and the bright blue.
Mhm.
Where Peter looks more natural in them versus, Peter kind of looks off when you see him in those darker suits.
Yeah.
But with Miles, the thing that I've always loved about a lot of his looks is that he incorporates his personality into his suit.
Right.
So when you have, like that one, what was that one called?
This one's called the
sportswear
sportswear
suit. Yeah, so he's wearing the puffy jacket and the hoodie and the baggy, the basketball shorts with tennis shoes and those look like gloves. Or is that actually part of a suit?
I think they're just gloves.
Yeah. So, but you see that and you're like, okay, that's the new Spider-Man. That's the younger Spider-Man. That's the kid.
Right. who just didn't have time to change all the way. And he's like, let me just throw this mask on and go. And it works.
Yes, it does work for him because it I don't know, it just fits his personality more. And I like him in more of those types of suits with the hoods or, no, I don't like that one. That looks like a cross between freaking Dracula and Ant-Man.
Yeah, this is called the Life Story suit. It's very plain, but
I
it's
do
the
not
helmet
like it.
that's kind of throwing it.
It made him taller.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wow,
Now,
that is weird.
the Miles Morales 2099 suit,
That one is nice.
it has the 2099 spider, but the hoodie and everything, like especially if you get in for the detail, and I wish we could in this scene, or in the menu, but if you actually see it in play, you can see it almost has a very specific fiber, and I cannot think of what it is, but it looks very, very, just the detail they put into it, the trim and everything about it, kind of has a very navy blue, I guess, coloring to it with the red trim and a black mask with white webbing. And they even glow, the eyes glow if you kind of aim them at a certain way. That one's probably one of my favorites of his unique suits that I don't think have been seen in the comics. Maybe it has, and I just don't know. But I love that suit. And there's a 2020 suit, which has a very cyberpunk type look to it, I suppose.
It kind of makes me think of the one spider.
Oh, Penny Parker?
Yes.
Yeah. Very much like that. He also has his own arachnite suit called the Shadow Spider, which it's cool, but it's not Spider-Man.
I just don't think Spider-Man needs a cape.
Right.
Him swinging through stuff with a cape,
Yeah.
Listen to Edma mode. Don't wear capes.
No capes. Brooklyn 2099 suit. It's more techie and more Iron Man-esque with
techie with very baggy pants.
Yeah, very baggy pants.
It's almost ninja-y.
The advanced suit kind of looks like his classic, but a lot more armory. So think like you took Miles' suit, but made it more Iron Spidery. And you kind of get that. The Bodega Cat suit is a return suit from the last game where you got the little cat in your backpack.
Yes.
That tag along with you.
The little cat that totally looks like, what's his name?
Garfield?
No.
Heathcliff?
No. Nick Fury's kitty.
Oh, you mean Captain Marvel's kitty, Goose.
Well, Nick took care of him too.
Okay,
but
well.
yes, Goose. He looks like Goose.
Yeah. So you have your cat in your bag. But again, the suit itself, if we're not paying attention to just the cat, has a very Miles-esque feel to his personality. He just throws on a hoodie and he's like, I'm golden, man.
Yeah.
Got his mask on.
Hoodie and some super nice leggings.
Now, the coolest one we've seen thus far is the Forever suit, which is a blend of Miles' suit and the Black Panther suit.
Yes.
And I honestly, I don't even know which one I would say is my favorite out of the color scheme because I think they all work. Because the red pays homage to Miles. Just a straight black that pays homage to T'Challa. If you go to the black and gold, that's kind of like Killmonger. And then even the purple It's a nice trim. I don't really feel like it pays homage to anybody specifically, but it works.
I kind of feel like it works a little kind of with Prowler too.
Yeah. So
it's very cat-esque, and the reason we know it is Black Panther is because it has the diamonds
and
around the top.
cat ears.
Yes, and the cat ears.
Yeah. So it's very much a homage to the Black Panther suit.
Yes.
With Spider-Man elements, or Spider-Man suit with Black Panther elements.
And it's a beautiful
it's
suit.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Something that's a bit more like Peter's own homemade suit. It's a return suit from the last game, but with color variations. The Into the Spider-Verse suit is back.
Yes, without the bleeding armpits.
Mm-hmm. But you also have he's very much a lankier character.
Oh, yes.
Because he goes from super buff to very, very lanky. And they also brought back that animation style where you can see it look like the Into the Spider-Verse. So that also works with the Spider-Man Noir suit. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of neat.
It is really cool.
And then you have the 5 other suits. There's an encoded suit, which is a very weird armory, spiky, I don't know what the hell. There's the biomechanical suit, which is very gross.
So I had said the first time we saw it that it looked like Spawnish.
Yeah.
But I also think it looks like what's his name? Power Rangers.
You're gonna have to help me out.
One second.
Now, when she's saying Spawn, we're talking like movie Spawn.
Yeah, movie Spawn.
Where you have that special armor, whatever he called it. I don't remember. But I don't know. I haven't used
Lord Zed.
Lord Zed, there you go.
Yeah. Because it's you literally see like the muscles.
Yeah.
Like the inside, like the skin is gone muscles.
Sure. And
it does. It looks very Zed like.
And they may all look great in play, but I mean, just kind of staring at them, it's just like, eh.
It's over. It's too busy.
It's very busy, yeah.
Yes, way too busy.
Shit. And let's see. Another one he has that I kind of like the design, but at the same time I haven't really used it, is the Tokusatsu suit. It's inspired by Japanese Tokusatsu like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you can, the shoulder pads just scream Power Rangers.
It's neat, but yeah, I think the helmet's what's throwing me.
Yeah.
It's too motorcycle-y.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I've noticed that with a few of the ones that aren't just masks, but you can tell it's more of a helmet versus a mask.
The Agimat suit, it just looks like...
He looks like a motherboard.
Yeah, he's missing some skin. And then
now
the
that one.
Yeah, the Red Spectre suit is pretty cool.
I really like that one.
Kind of a nice hybrid of a regular Spider-Man suit, but with the hoodie. He's even got like tufts of his hair sticking out.
Like that's the part that I like, the tufts of his hair, and the fact that you can tell he is a man of color. Like because they did give him like it's not like the natural hairstyle is in like kind of like afro-y looking hairstyle. It's like, I'm not sure what the hairstyle is called, but like the kind of tight twists.
Yeah.
And not quite dreads, but I don't know. It's really freaking cool looking because not only is it his hair, but they also kind of gave him like the red tips on it. So it goes with the rest of the suit. Right. And it suits Miles. Where like the one with Peter, where you see his hair and he kind of has the Captain Marvel type, mohawk on top of his head. It just doesn't look right.
Right. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, but with Miles, like him showing his hair, I just feel like it fits with him. Like it fits with him so well. And they were able to incorporate it into the suit to where it didn't just look really off or uncomfortable. And
it's like you said, trying to give him his own identity, trying to give him something that makes him a unique Spider-Man. Like, I think that's why people latched onto Spider-Gwen so hard, is because her outfit was so different and so unique that people were like, yes, I want more of that.
Yes.
Because she wasn't just Spider-Man or had a Spider-Man suit, same color schemes and everything. Everything was different. White with pink and a light blue webbing. I mean, we hadn't seen that.
No.
Even with Miles, I mean, it was we hadn't seen that before, but it still had hints of Peter's design, but with a different flair. So when they started to mix that up a little bit, I was trying to appreciate what they were doing, but I did think that his original suit design was so perfectly encapsulating, allowing him to taking on a legacy, but being his own person, that's why I love his original suit so much, that it's hard for me to want to see him in a new suit when they try so many different variations that I don't feel like are doing it right, versus some of these that I feel like are doing it right. And I don't understand why the comics can't latch on to those designs where the game designers are coming up with some really good stuff that suit him.
That's the thing, because I know I've showed you pictures of them before, but like there are people out there who do the fan art for like the quote unquote Spider family, where they make whole new Spider-Men and women that have their own special powers, kind of like Miles does. And it seems to have started after Miles came to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it kind of opened that door, not just with Miles, but also with Gwen. Because you have more Spider women and you have more, Spider men, but they don't go by Spider-Man. And they have their own, like, very unique designs.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorites, I don't remember what they're called, but it is a girl, and she's a bigger girl, which I thought was really cool, because you kind of see that in the Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yes. You kind of see that in Across the Spider-Verse with a few of the other ones. But she is a bigger girl. She is a woman of color. And her spider suit, she has like a skirt, but she also wears like the tights and everything. And she has kind of a ballerina-esque look to her. And I think it's really cool because we haven't seen that with other Spider women. Like, you get like the basic kind of Spider woman looking suit.
Yeah.
Or then you have like Gwen's type suit, which is more petite and more kind of feminine. But with her, they took it to a whole nother kind of cutesy, animated looking level. And there's a lot of them that are kind of like that. The new one that they announced, what are they called? Is it Web Weaver? Yeah. Their suit. Really freaking cool, because it doesn't look like, it has those same kind of looks of the Spider-Man suits in the sense of you can tell it is a spider, person. But it is also very different than Peter or Miles or, any of the other Spider-Men and women that we've seen. And I think it's cool. And I think that Marvel should, kind of take a hint or even buy some of these fans' artwork, because some of these spider people would be absolutely amazing to see. And especially in like the animated movies with Miles.
I might have to double check, but I'm almost positive Web Weaver may have been incorporated into the comics, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I think it would be awesome if they did, because with all the different ones, and you can go out there and look them up on Google or Pinterest or whatever, but they have all different kinds. And like, there's one I wanted to read up more on them, because these people have made like the whole backstories for these characters. And there's a set of Spider-Man, and it's twins. And like, that's their whole kind of persona, is they are these twin spider people who go out and fight crime together, which I thought was really freaking cool, because then you're not just having the one Spider-Man who's got to take it all on their own, but then you have somebody who has a partner from the get-go, which I think is really cool. And it honestly, I think it would be cool to see other variations of the spider people outside of just being the main ones that we've seen over and over and over again. Because even in Across the Spider-Verse, 99% of them were just variations of Peter Parker.
Now, I want to touch on a few things real quick, and then I'm going to come back to that. So don't forget where you're at right now, because I want to touch on something, because I want to swing back around.
I'll try.
So first thing, we haven't really talked about this, but we've talked about traversing the city. I want to talk about what you mentioned the video that we watched where we saw comparisons. Visual comparisons from the last game. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is a game built for the PlayStation 5.
Yes.
And they really took advantage because it's not subtle differences, very noticeable differences. I kind of mentioned some way you could kind of look at it as going from Blu-ray to 4K, but at the same time, I really don't feel like that's a fair comparison.
It's like DVD to 4K, and that's not me trying to talk shit about the original game.
But we're talking about, DVD. You only got like 720 to 480 resolution. You're lucky to get 1080. This 4K going to 2160. I mean, the level of detail. You look at Central Park. You look at just the river itself, just surrounding the island, or just the body of water surrounding the island. Everything, the details. I've seen planes flying overhead, the birds floating through.
The thing that I feel like kind of caught me off guard last night when you were playing it that I hadn't really noticed is, we talked about the windows and stuff like that. Like when it showed you the first one, you kind of had that basic window look that a lot of games have where they just don't put a lot of detail into the background. Yeah. So you kind of get like hints of reflecting light, but it's just kind of that basic. It doesn't move. With the new one, there was a point where you were standing on top of a building looking out and you saw all these skyscrapers in the distance. And as you moved and turned the camera, you could literally see the clouds and the sun moving across those windows. Yeah. And when he moved certain ways, you could see the birds reflected. I saw one of the planes reflected. You could see yourself reflected in these windows. And this is from a great freaking distance away because you weren't up on any of these skyscrapers. You were back far enough that you could literally see the entire skyline reflected in these skyscrapers. Yeah. And it was freaking amazing because it looked like a movie.
And I do want to preface this by also saying that I am playing in what is called performance mode, or let me rephrase. Yeah, there's performance and fidelity. I think I'm playing in fidelity mode, which runs everything graphically at a higher rate, but also kind of tempers down the frame rate to about 40 frames per second. Versus performance, which would amp up everything to 60. But I also feel like I remember them saying that if you go to that performance mode where you're getting to the higher rates, they have to kind of compensate for a few things. Because one of the things we talked about was how dense the city felt now. Yeah. So many cars, so many people. If I had gone into performance mode, I think that's some of the stuff that would have been removed, like it would have to temper that back, versus in the fidelity mode, which allows a lot of that stuff to work in favor of that. I think it looks great. Now I do want to try it on performance mode just to kind of play around, because I know that at the higher frame rate it's going to look and be a little bit more fluid, but you're also going to be cutting back on some of the graphical capabilities. But just in fidelity, it looks phenomenal. I think it looks great as is. Like you said, just what we got to see, the ray tracing reflections and stuff like that, it looks great as is. So I don't feel like performance is necessary. However, I do want to also bring this up because this happened to me last night and I was a little upset. I don't know why, but the game did crash on me. Now, I was not in a mission. I still honestly cannot figure out what exactly happened to cause it to crash, because I had just finished a mission. There was a radio program, because kind of like what Jonah in the original game, he would come on and be like, Spider-Man is doing this, blah, blah, blah. And you just hear these random radio stories going on. Well, I had just finished this whole side story mission, and there was a radio program playing that was kind of praising me for my exploits, if you will. So I was listening to it before I enacted this last thing that kind of capped off the story. And as that was happening, I saw that there was crime going on nearby. So I thought, well, while she's talking, I'll go stop the crime, and then I'll come back and get this item or whatever and finish the story up. And as I was making my way to the crime, the game crashed. Again, I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I don't know what... Because there was nothing going on.
No.
It was like I had literally stopped playing for a minute, just waiting for this radio program to stop, and I just said, "All right, fuck it, let me go take care of this real quick," and then it crashed. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that was, but it happened. It's one time so far. That's the only bad encounter I've had. I've not seen any kind of glitches or any weird bugs like in Saints Row. We saw people just floating in the air and shit.
Yeah,
nothing like that. So it's. They've taken very good care of the game and made sure that it was bug free. So I don't know what that was.
And I feel like they've even added like some kind of, like we've been talking about, you know, the realistic type detail and stuff like that. But there was something you did last night that I kind of laughed at, and I don't think you actually got to witness it when it happened. But you had jumped down from a building or something, landed on the ground. But when you had landed, you bumped into somebody. And it wasn't like, you know, in like Saints Row or Grand Theft Auto or, you know, even like Batman, where you kind of run into somebody and they kind of stumble to the side. Like this man full on fell onto the ground. Like not just blocky fell, like he just, you know, it looked like an actual person being knocked over. And he fell onto the ground, and it took him a second to get back up. And when he got back up, he was just like, you know, what the crap? Didn't go running off screaming like a lot of NPCs are programmed to do. But I thought it was a really cool kind of trait, because that's one of the things that I guess I have always wanted in a game, and you don't ever really get to see it. But I feel like if you're going to have a game where, whether it's superhero, you know, Saints Row, whatever, if you have a game where you are in a city and you are running around and fighting, like there's going to be collateral damage. And I'm not saying like people getting killed, but you just falling out of the sky and hitting somebody, of course they're going to fall the fuck over. You know, they're going to look like they got hurt.
Right.
But I feel like it's the same way where they could have taken this game a step further, where like when you're playing and stuff like that, other than cut scenes where you see them smashing through windows, I feel like it would be cool if you're swinging and you don't stop soon enough and you hit the side of a building that window cracks. Yeah. Or something like that. Like make it realistic, because you're showing that you can to a point, because, you know, you added flying flocks of birds and reflections and people standing in their kitchen cooking and stuff like that. Like, how hard is it to, you know, if a car crashes into something, it's going to damage it. If, you know, you go smashing into a building, it's going to damage it.
I have heard that, and I haven't messed around with it, but apparently you can add fall damage to your character. So you can turn that option on. So if you fell all the way to the ground, you could probably die. I
mean, that's realistic, though. Yeah. This ain't Monster Hunter. You can't eat yourself off a mountain and survive.
I've heard some people wanted that feature, so I mean, I guess they oblige you. Like, here you go.
But I mean, I think that makes it cooler, because you're playing the game to be Spider-Man, and while yes, you know, Spider-Man's a superhero and he can take more damage than a normal person, he still is a person. He still is a human.
Yeah, true.
He might be altered, but he can still get hurt. And I think that's the thing that makes those kind of games cool, is when you actually reflect that. And it's not just, you know, like, oh, no, he's invincible. Yeah. But in the same regard, I've always had issues with, like we were talking about the new Mortal Kombat and the new characters that they have. Like, what's his name? Is it Invincible? What's his name?
Oh, Omni-Man?
Omni-Man, yeah. I don't feel like you should be able to have a character like him or like Superman in a game like that, because at the end of the day, they're going to whoop all of those people's asses.
But who's going to win in the fight between Homelander and Omni-Man then?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're going to have like Homelander versus Omni-Man, but you can't have Omni-Man versus freaking Scorpion or Sub-Zero or, you know, fucking Johnny Cage. Like, come on. He's going to annihilate them. Yeah. But you don't make it that way. They always make these characters that are these super freaking powerful characters, and then you can just kick their ass with everyday human. And while, yes, it's cool to be able to play as those characters, I also feel like it doesn't do the characters justice. Like, if you're going to be Superman in a game, you shouldn't be able to take damage unless it is by magic or kryptonite.
Sure.
So, like, I guess, I don't know. I don't know what I'm
you
trying to
mean.
say.
I get what you mean. It creates this odd, like Rambo fighting a predator would be kind of neat. But at the same time, Freddy Krueger fighting Sonya Blade is just like, well, he's going to fucking annihilate her. She might be a fighter, but at the same time, well, no.
Well, no, because he'd be in the real world.
Yeah, that's true.
Sonya Blade fighting Jason Voorhees.
Well, like you said, Omni-Man. Omni-Man versus Johnny Cage. Absolutely not. Okay?
Yeah.
He beat
Even
the fuck
Superman
out of his son.
versus Johnny Cage.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. He could walk up, flick him in the forehead, and his head would explode.
Yeah. So,
Like, come on.
I agree. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yes.
So I'm trying to think of anything else that I want to touch on, because I feel like I've talked about the graphics, talked about the gameplay, talked about the costumes.
We did talk about the graphics, but we didn't really talk about how they look when they talk. And I feel like they actually kind of like The Last of Us. It is very, like, it's good.
Yeah.
It's not very, blocky kind of where their mouth just moves up and down and doesn't actually,
Yeah, I mean, the detail, the level of detail, it's about what we should expect with games nowadays, where you're really getting that realism. The characters they don't have that dead look.
Yes,
like video game characters have have had in the past. You can connect with them on an emotional level. There was a great side mission, and I think this is one of those things that I want to bring up too, which there are various side missions throughout the game that you can encounter. Like there was one that I did at Visions Academy where you're Miles helping fellow students with certain things. But then there's this, you have an app that, if you remember in Miles Morales, that game, your friend Genki had created this app where people could tell you, hey, there's crime in the city, and that's pretty much how you get notified of criminal activities in the city. But some people will actually have a special request for you to help them with. And I've encountered one where this lady says, hey, my grandfather, he's missing. I don't know where he's at. Could you help me find him? And it feels like a very personal story that they added in. And it's such a great touch, because you go through the city, you follow the clues, you find this man, and he's just sitting on a park bench, and you encounter him, you sit down with him, and he just talks about why he's there. He's like, I was just thinking about my wife. She passed away. And, when I have these visions, these moments, it's like she's still there with me. And I just wanted to kind of get that back. And I didn't mean to bother nobody. Didn't mean to worry nobody. I just wanted to be with her for a minute. And it's a very personal, touching moment that you get to experience as Spider-Man. And I just, those little moments in the game, I really appreciate, because it helps expand the story more. And even in the main story, I would say that there were moments where I felt like, and I don't want this to sound bad, but sometimes, when you're doing story missions, you expect you're going to go in and it's going to be action, and that's what the story is. But so far, there's been several story beats where it's been more interactive, like the story's playing out, but you're just doing something to kind of reconnect, especially on Peter's side, because you're trying to reconnect with Harry. So you have these stories that there's not action going on. You're still interacting with the story. You're still doing things, but you're not doing anything like fighting bad guys or anything like that. You're just going along for the ride, so to speak. But again, in regards to the story, you're still captivated by it. And I appreciate that it's not just like, here we go.
Yeah.
You want to know more about what's going on. You want to know what happened to Harry. You want to know where everything's going to go with all the characters. And they are still doing a great job balancing all the characters, because you're not just following Peter, you're following Miles. He's got his stuff going on. Miles has got his own stuff going on. And then you get sprinklings of Mary Jane, and she's got, she's trying to get her career off the ground. So I there's a lot going on, but I appreciate that everyone is getting a chance to advance their story. No one feels like they're being left behind.
Yeah.
So,
Which is really nice, especially when you're going to have a game that has two heroes that you want to be represented equally.
yeah. And that was one of my concerns too, is that it would feel like one is getting more favor over the other. But so far, from everything that I've seen, they are both integral to the story and what's playing out. And I cannot wait to see how it all kind of culminates. And I'm hoping that nothing gets spoiled for me story-wise, because I really want to experience this story naturally through the game itself and not because somebody's like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So, in saying that, as I've said, I don't know anything about the story and how it ends. So, if I'm speculating on something, I know that there's probably tons upon hundreds of thousands of people who've already beaten the game. I didn't have that opportunity, and you know what? I'm not one to rush a game, especially like this.
Definitely not.
I want to experience every minute of it that I can, because I love Spider-Man so much, and being able to play Spider-Man like this, it's a dream. So I don't want to just rush it. So in saying that, I have some hypotheses, and this is what I want to come back to, about where this story, maybe not where it ends, but what opportunities it might open up. Now, again, this is all speculation. So if I'm right, or if there's no reference to it there, this is just stuff I'm picking up along the way, story-wise.
Okay.
I think that by the end, there will be some opportunity or something in the story that indicates Spider-Verse. Reason I say that is because now I know the Wand of Watum, which is spoilers. Now that I've already said it, I guess I should have said it beforehand. Doesn't matter. The Wand of Watum was an artifact that we saw Felicia steal from Doctor Strange's sanctum. This essentially opens up portals. Now, I know that doesn't really that's not a multiversal thing, right? But it was very interesting how they kind of mentioned, it's like, well, it just opens up doors to anywhere. And I thought, okay. The reason I took note of that is previously I'd seen a story beat where they mentioned a particle accelerator.
Yeah.
That was a detail from the Spider-Verse movies, and that was happening at Oscorp. And I was like, okay, they didn't go beyond that. They didn't expound upon it in that moment. They were just like, you got a particle accelerator? And I was like, oh yeah, we use it for the yada yada. And I was like, huh. Yeah,
just sitting there like a big Epcot.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a whole bunch of shit in one big room.
Made it seem like it was just no big thing. And I thought, well, but you're pointing it out.
Yeah.
You know, you're acting like it's nothing, but you're pointing it out. So,
not just pointing it out, but if you remember that scene, it was literally like right in the middle of the entire room. Like it was the center focus of that room.
So the reason I'm hypothesizing that is based on something you said about being able to play other spider people.
Yeah.
We've played Peter. We've played Miles. Obviously, I guarantee you there are people out there who's like, what about Gwen? Why can't I play Spider Gwen?
Right.
Or something like that. So if we had a way to introduce her into the next game, that could be a door open, which then in turn opens up the door for other spider people to be introduced. That way you're not having to do the costumes. You can just do different spiders.
See, and that would be absolutely freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Because okay, so this is going to be my problem, or has been, I guess, my problem. Not only does Peter look out of place when he is in other costumes, but
Not
with those
time.
Specific ones, like 2099, hearing Peter's voice come out of that suit just feels wrong.
Sure.
Same with Noir, same with Spider-Punk. Like, because you know that it's not Peter Parker.
Well,
and I think that's the thing that kills me.
It's his voice. Yuri Lowenthal, the guy who plays Peter Parker in this, he has a very Peter Parker-esque voice. The type of, excuse me, the type of voice I expect Peter to have. There's some not quite a deep voice. It's kind of a higher pitched, youthful sounding voice.
Yeah.
But still kind of adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the kind I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know, a very specific type of voice. His voice is the type I expect to hear out of Spider-Man. Christopher Daniel Barnes, who did him in the 90s animated series, that was like my absolute favorite Peter Parker voice. I felt like he had the tone, the rhythm, especially when it came to jokes and things like that. He did a fantastic job. Josh Keaton is another one of my favorites that has that same type of youthful energy and tone to his voice. Now, with Miguel, yes, he is not, like, the very first time I ever heard him vocalized in a video game, I think was Edge of the Spider-Verse. And they used, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me right off the top of my head, but he was the man who did the voice of Spider-Man in the 80s cartoon. That did not set right with me because I was like, that is not the voice I expected to hear.
No.
You know, because nostalgic for sure, because that's that voice I remembered as a kid, but not out of that Spider-Man. You know, it didn't work. Same when they used Christopher Daniel Barnes as Spider-Man Noir in that same game. I was just like, that, because he's trying to do the old, I'm Spider-Man, you know, and I'm trying to be dark and mysterious. And I was like, but you're not. You're the guy. You're over here.
Yeah.
You know, you're not that Spider-Man. So I get that. There are certain Spider-Men that, despite being a Peter Parker, you expect a certain voice. And I don't feel like certain people can nail those voices, so I can see what you mean.
And yeah, and I guess that's where it kind of comes down to, because again, not all of them are Peter Parker. Like Spider-Punk. He's not Peter Parker.
Right.
He is Hobie Brown.
Right.
Whether he is a man of color, whether they make him white. Like,
well, Hobie's always been a man of color.
He has always been a man of color. Okay. So again, I don't want to hear a white man's voice coming out of Spider-Punk's costume.
Sure.
He needs to sound like Spider-Punk. Now, whether that is Spider-Punk, obviously, I guess the only thing that we have Spider-Punk in would be Across the Spider-Verse. But even still, it doesn't have to be that man or somebody trying to do his voice in the game.
Yeah.
But give us somebody who's not going to sound like freaking Peter Parker. Same with Noir. I don't want to hear Peter Parker's voice out of Noir. I want that deeper, darker kind of Batman-y voice.
Yeah.
Same with Miguel. He's fucking Hispanic. Like, come on. I don't want a white man playing a Hispanic Spider-Man. Just let him fucking be Hispanic. And I would absolutely love for them to introduce Gwen Stacy, because we have had female spider people for quite some time. Spider-Woman has existed for quite some time, yet she has never been a playable character in any video game.
Nope. Not that I can
And
recall.
while I know that there are people out there still to this day that say, comic books and video games are for boys, has been proven wrong time and time again. That's why we have fucking female superheroes.
Yeah, that is an absolute falsehood.
So maybe if, they had a female Spider-Man option in the Spider-Man game, maybe you would get more women to play the game. And I'm sure there are women out there who absolutely love the game, as playing as Miles or Peter. But you have all these other games where you have female lead characters, and she ain't even got to be a lead character. Just make her a freaking option.
Well, I mean, just very much like this, okay? With Peter and Miles, you have two Spider-Men you can play as. That opens up a door for some form of representation.
Yes.
But what would it be to have a Spider-Man who is Spider-Woman? A Spider-Man like Webweaver.
Yeah.
You have that character. So you have a spider that represents you.
Which is the same as if you make a whole Spider-Verse game and you can play as Miguel or as Spider-Punk or as any of the other Spider-Men and women that are not Peter and Miles or Peter.
And I understand that that's a big ask because it could be a very tricky situation. Not costume wise, I feel like you could do kind of variations to where it would still work. Gameplay would still, but it would come down to vocals and things like that where it might get a little bulky for them. Like, I think it would be very difficult for them to try and represent all. So I get that. But if you could at least pick and choose some that could represent an entire spectrum of Spider people that everyone could relate to, then you could at least say, well, this is a Spider-Man for me, and that's a Spider for me, and that's a Spider for me. And everyone has something they can relate to. I think that would be beautiful.
It would be beautiful. It'd
But-
be absolutely beautiful. And I'm sure that they could do it because you have games where you can download whole new freaking characters. You have games where you can download whole new storylines and everything else. And at the end of the day, while a lot of us don't like having to buy those things that are hidden behind a paywall, 99% of us are going to do it because we want to be able to play as those characters or to have those characters, to have those voices, to have those looks, whatever. And I feel like with Spider-Man specifically, you have a door that literally you have so many freaking options.
Especially now.
So many. Yeah, especially now. So many options that you could do. And yes, obviously you're always going to come back to the nostalgia of Peter or Miles. But at the end of the day, just give those freaking options. Because even if one person plays it, at least that's one person that feels seen and accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like they have created so many various Spider people that if they, especially with Insomniac, and I'm not trying to knock any of the others because I feel like I'm going to use Spider-Man India for a great example. When they first introduced him in the comics, costume is a little iffy. Like, didn't quite, borderline racist, you know what I mean? Not quite to that, but borderline. Like, if you pushed it just a little farther, you'd be like, you're all right, you're crossing the line here, you know what I mean? Whereas in Across the Spider-Verse, they took from the culture and they designed a brand new suit that represented him better.
That's the one that always cracks me up.
Puppeteer, So if you
I want
could,
some chai tea.
you can't say chai tea. I say
That's like-
tea.
It's like saying I want some coffee. I love him so much.
But you can do that same thing. I guarantee you they would do the research. They would have people on board trying to design costumes and outfits for these different Spider people that represented them even better. And on a kind of what they did with the one costume that we mentioned, the one that was very Asian inspired, Japanese inspired. You do that kind of same thing, you know, do something that kind of represents those spiders in a certain way, a culture, whether it be Indian culture, Japanese culture, LGBTQ culture, things like that.
Yes.
Where you incorporate that. But again, I feel like the next step for this game needs to be Gwen,
Yes.
because we have not had a female spider in a game, especially like this. And I think it would be great to be able to play as Gwen in a game like this.
I think it would be too, because the only female characters we have in this game are, you know, the basic ones like Mary Jane and then what's her face?
Oh, Felicia,
Yeah.
Black Cat.
Yeah.
Now
her.
they did. You didn't see this, but there was a mission that I played where they reintroduced a character from the previous game, Yuri, which was a detective. And I remember this in the comics. She becomes a hero known as the Wraith. And we did run into her in the Wraith costume and mask. And she took her mask off and she's like, hey, you know, I'm doing this now. So
Oh, that's cool.
I'm
Okay.
hoping to see her again as the story progresses because I don't think her story is quite done.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to see her again. But I thought that was cool because I'd forgotten. I remembered Yuri.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she said she was the Wraith, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. She did become the Wraith in the comics. She's one of these newer characters that have in recent years. So that's why she's not as fresh in my head.
You know, I just thought of how they could do. Like, with Gwen Stacy, I feel like you could still do her in this world with Peter and Miles. I feel like you could write in a storyline to where, you know, there is a Gwen Stacy. She becomes a Spider-Woman, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. However, with the other ones, I think it would be really cool. Like, again, if they made expansion packs for this game or for a future game to where you could go to these other Spider-Men and women's universes, because that would be freaking awesome to be able to run around, you know, Noir's universe as Noir and see the different, you know, the similarities, but the differences. Same with Spider-Punk, especially if they did Spider-Punk the way, like, you know, he is in Across the Spider-Verse, where it's, you know, the very kind of 80s-esque looking punk rock type stuff. Like, that'd be freaking amazing. They could do it with so many of them.
Now, again, this is all speculation on our part. We have no idea if that's what they're going to do.
We have no idea.
I just feel like from a natural progression of where we're at, you've given us Peter, given us Miles. We have to get to a Spider-Woman at this point. We need a Spider-Woman to be played in this type of game.
We need Gwen Stacy because I don't want to see like OG Spider-Woman.
But I even thought like that would be kind of interesting too, because there are other Spider-Women, not just Jessica Drew, but various others whose names are slipping my mind at the moment. And don't at me, people. I know who they are. I'm just Jessica Carpenter. There's you another one. Shut up. That you can throw in. And I was even thinking, as you were talking about the costumes and stuff like that, now granted, I don't know if this would necessarily work in that regard, but I think it would be a fun thing to do if you did the Gwen thing, but at the same time, I feel like it would kind of be, like you said, the Spider-Man 2099 costume on Peter. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But there's a version where Spider-Man and Mary Jane got married, had a kid, and then they all three became heroes together. And we saw Spinneret and I can't remember Mary Jane's name. Whatever, I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Whatever her hero name was, we saw them in Across the Spider-Verse kind of walking together.
Yeah.
And it would be cool to play in that costume. But again, you'd have that disassociation where it's like, well, this is Mary Jane, not Gwen. But
yeah.
Still neat to actually see it represented on screen, that we actually get to see it in action.
Yeah.
Would be kind of neat. So, I don't know. We've rambled for much longer than I expected. As we have this snack, I guess.
We do.
Where we can go on and on about stuff.
Because we usually get sidetracked and go off on tangents.
Which we did.
You know, it always comes back around.
Yeah.
There's meaning to it, you know, 95% of the time.
We stayed on topic with Spider-Man.
We did.
So, anyway, that's kind of my long first impressions of Spider-Man, our first impressions. And like I said, if you would please go wish our sister Lace a happy birthday today. If you're listening on Monday, and if you forgot and you didn't hear this, still go and be like, belated birthday, happy birthday and whatnot. So I hope she had a wonderful day. But anyway, we're going to let you guys go. You know where to find us on the social medias. We're everywhere. On all the platforms now, whether it be X, Facebook, Spoutable, Hive, Blue Sky, all those places, TikTok, which I try to post up on, but I don't know. I'm trying. I got ideas, and then the loss of data really just set me back some. But we're on all those platforms. You can find us on pencilpaperproductions.com/SuperMegaCrash. If you want to give us 5-star ratings on the things, which I know several people have, and we thank you so much for that. But that's all we have for today. Join us again next time, siblings. But until then, go beyond your limits.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.